On today's episode of Locked On Suns, the good, the bad, and what we're looking for next, coming off of the Phoenix Suns' first preseason game in Detroit. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for making Locked On Suns your first listen to start your week. Happy Monday. We are free and available everywhere, so if you've not already, if you're finding us for the first time or just never bothered to do it, hit follow, hit subscribe wherever you're finding the show. Get the show in your feed every single Monday through Friday from here through the end of the season. Become an everyday or get locked onto the Suns right along with me as we make our way through the season, which is now basically officially started. We got basketball, real games for the first time on Sunday afternoon. That is what we will talk about here today. The show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Brandon Dueñas is here as he is every single Monday. We're going to talk Suns Pistons, where the Suns did come away with an overtime victory, which I don't think anybody wanted to deal with in the preseason, but nevertheless, they did. A little bit of, some revenge against Monty Williams and the young Pistons, but only no more than 15 minutes for many of the starters. No appearances from the starters in the second half, so we're just going to go back and forth, the good, the bad, and then we'll close out the show with what we are looking forward to seeing in the next game or what we're curious about coming off of this one, just sort of a look ahead. But Brandon, I will let you pick here. Do we want to start with the negative or start with the positive?
Well, I mean, it's been 150 days since we've had a Phoenix Suns basketball game. So I think start with the positive here, because to be frank, there's not a ton of negative. So maybe, we could save that. So let's do positive. 46-29 first quarter. That was pretty fun to watch, pretty awesome. And it was pretty clear to me right away that the offense was just exactly what we hoped, but I'll let you go first. Be more specific than that, because I think that's the obvious. But was there a player? Was there an action? Was there a stretch of the game? Like, what is the first positive that comes to mind for you coming off that game? Just how natural they looked right off the bat. I mean, the 46 piece in the first quarter, let's just take a second here to kind of look at that and say they shot 17 for 20 from the field, 85%. Is that good? I'm not sure. That is, to me, for them to just go with an entire roster with all the turnover they've had and just to look that naturally smooth without forcing anything. Just the ball was moving for them to hit the ground running like that. I didn't even expect that. I don't care who you're playing. If it's the Pistons, if it's the Adelaide 36ers, it doesn't matter. For them to get off the ground running like that was super impressive. So just the offensive familiarity that they've built in a short amount of time was really impressive. So 85% in the first quarter, that's just nuts.
I mean, that's the thing though, right? Was it even familiarity, or is it just going to be that easy? I don't even know if I think they were running, frankly, more than I expected. But honestly, a lot of the best moments were exactly what I think you would have wanted to see, which is just push the ball up the court and get the first good shot and trust that whether it's your best three players taking that shot or getting into a space that requires help and then creating an open shot for someone else, the simplicity really jumped out too, right? It was the familiarity of kind of who's going to have it, sharing and running some early basic sets, but it was also just man, they're not even going to have to really think too hard out there. That was kind of what jumped out to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just the way the ball was moving, there was no ego. It was just like you said, just the best shot. We're going to pick the ball up and run. Last year, I won't call anyone out, but there's players that would not always be willing to do that. And I think that kind of slowed things down from time to time, where I think this team's identity offensively is just going to be let's get it and go. Let's move the ball. Let's run our actions. Like I thought they had some really creative stuff up top with some screens. And I think the best part about this team is like they can go through their sets, and like if there's nothing there, then it's like, all right, Devin Booker's just going to hit a contested pull-up three, or Kevin Durant's going to shoot over the top of whoever he wants. And if you send help, it's like, okay, Beal's in the corner wide open. Utah's in the corner wide open. Like, they just have so many weapons, and it's almost like surrounding 3 superstar scorers with a ton of shooters was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that way. And I'll just rifle through a few quick hitters, and then I have a question for you coming off of kind of that stuff. I mean, the League Pass version that I watched as a replay was the Pistons broadcast. He said, the color commentator for them, who I actually don't know who that is, said he just noted how, to your point, in terms of some of that chemistry stuff, how quickly they transition, where Beal obviously got going first, Booker picked it up from there, and then toward the end of the first quarter into the early second quarter, Durant kind of took over. But it didn't feel like your turn, my turn, overthinking it, overpassing, guys confused. It just felt really natural. And I think it was just sort of like, all right, like you're feeling comfortable, like you go, So I think that is great to see from game one. The quick hitters that I was going to go through, a few smaller things that I liked. I thought Gordon getting paint touches out of his drives and kicking was really good. He didn't have a great shooting game, but I thought he got downhill, beat his defender, and kicked out for open shooters pretty well. Obviously had 3 assists, as anyone looking in the box score can see. I thought Kogi handling the ball was pretty interesting, cool thing we saw kind of for the first time in a while, where in some of those lineups where I don't know why Vogel put the lineup with none of the stars out there. It was kind of weird how he staggered them if he knew they were only going to play the first half, but whatever. When Kogi got to handle the ball, I'm like, okay, that's a smart thing to try because we know his shooting is going to come and go. What are the other ways he can work? So I liked that. The question, though, that I had was, who did you like best in that 5th spot? We pretty much only saw Gordon, Grayson Allen, and Josh Okogie get that opportunity. So which of the 3 of them did you kind of think looked the best, worked the best, felt the best coming off that game?
Honestly, I think it was Okogie. Like, I think his energy was just contagious early on. He was like, we've always seen one thing he's going to do is he's always going to give you all out effort. And he was everywhere early. Like his hands were everywhere. He was just deflecting things. He was, applying pressure and playing the role that he's going to have to play if he wants to stay with that group. But I think obviously the, guys like Gordon and Allen and even Utah can provide that shooting that he doesn't bring. So there's gonna be different matchups that come about. But yeah, I thought Kogi did a great job in the role he's supposed to play.
Yeah, and obviously, right away you could feel that his point of attack defense is going to be clearly like what keeps him out there. He got that steal on Cade at one point and took that coast to coast, and just the defense felt better when he was out there, I think, for sure. Any other positives for you, even if they're small, before we transition to some of the downs? Yeah,
there's a couple just quick. I'll just do some quick hitters. I thought Grayson Allen looked really good. His ability to not only knock down shots, but he did some stuff off the dribble and fancy footwork that I thought was pretty impressive, and defensively made a couple plays. So he looked like a perfect role player in the system. Metu moved a lot better than I saw. Like, I watched some of his tape in Sacramento and stuff, but it's different to watch like a live game like this and kind of see. It looks like he moves a lot better than I anticipated. Like he could actually dribble a little bit. Like he hit a couple of transition threes in the second half that I thought was, pretty interesting. Like I think he could definitely carve out a pretty decent role. But I like that Eubanks, Gordon, and Allen were the first 3 in the rotation. I think that makes the most sense. And then from there, I think Vogel was pretty open to experimenting with Utah, who looked pretty confident and did some cool stuff. So there's a lot of positives. Honestly, it was a good. Obviously, you're not gonna. It was a disaster.
I mean, come on, you got to talk about your guy.
Bull.
Yeah. You gotta. I mean, the red carpet has been rolled out. Just take your walk. It's your time.
Listen, man, I'm just happy he got on the court. I was waiting for it. It's preseason. You gotta try some fun stuff. And like he didn't have the best game, but he made some plays, had some showed some energy. Picked up the ball and dribbled it up a couple times. Like he's got the skill set. It's just about trying to get him to develop because he's still so raw. But yeah, I'm here for just giving Bol the most amount of minutes possible. With that second unit and just seeing what you have in preseason. That's what it's for, right? Just seeing if you could develop some of these guys and we'll probably see a lot more of him and guys like Saban Lee that are going to be fighting for some minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, guys fighting for roster spots right now. I don't think Bol is likely to get cut, but Keon Johnson playing 17 minutes in this one and Ish Wainwright having to miss the game. Like you hate to say it, but that factors in. I mean, even if it's an injury, not seeing you, that's just kind of the reality with this trade, that there's going to have to be players cut and then who's in the rotation, who's not, et cetera. So we got a first inclination from this, but we'll obviously monitor it. There will probably be at least one preseason game where the bench guys get even more minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if the starters rested, maybe the last one. But let's pivot to the negatives. I do have a couple. There's one guy we haven't mentioned who I think is where I will start. So we'll get to that next. First, today's show brought to you by Gametime. I know exactly where I'm looking for on Gametime this month, which is Diamondbacks playoff tickets. I think that they're actually not sold out yet, so check Gametime first in case you can get a great price and some of the deals and everything. But unfortunately, I don't think Diamondbacks fans are actually swarming to that website as much as you might like. Either way, you get $20 off your first purchase, which I'll tell you about in a second. So that's easily the place to look. They also have flash deals, zone deals, event cancellation protection, and a lowest price guarantee. You can basically price match as well if you're looking in the right places, and you can try to see what Gametime has, what other places have, and everything else. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind. See the view from your seat. All prices show in total up front, so you're getting a great deal, and you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. So whether it is the MLB playoffs or anything else, Gametime is the place to go. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. As I said before, terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's all one word, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's keep it rolling. I will start us off on the negatives. And I want to preface this. It's about Jusuf Nurkic. I don't want to pounce on the dude or like fall into like the confirmation bias thing of we all know defense is going to be a limitation for him and he's going to have to adjust to anchoring a great team's defense and they're going to figure out what lineups he's best with and they're all going to develop chemistry and all the different stuff. So I want to say that. I'm not just going to like chew the guy out for something we already know is going to be a question mark. That said, if I'll be more specific, because I think that's probably helpful, the fact that he had 3 fouls right away and 4 total, that's the big problem to me. Whether it was Jalen Duren or any of their young athletic guards driving to the basket, it just didn't feel like Nurkic was able to contest without fouling at all in this game. And I think that contributed to how you saw the Pistons get back into the game in the second quarter a little bit, have some of their best offensive stretches, at least in that competitive starter-led part of the game. And that's just not going to work, especially with the fact that the Suns are going to play small quite a bit and not have a lot of secondary rim protection when Durant is not on the court. He's just going to have to at least get in the way of people trying to put the ball in the basket without sending them to the free throw line, like at the bare minimum. And so it was disappointing that he was exposed in that way by a team that, yeah, they have a lot of driving athletic guards, like I said, but look, it's not a good team. So it's not a great team. It's not championship quality competition. You should be able to, block a couple of Jaden Ivey shots or something. And he was not able to do that. So that's the center of it. I have another defensive point we can get to after your first one, Brandon, but is that fair? I don't want to be too hard on Nurkic because we know what the reality is with him. We've seen him in the league for a long time, but he can't foul like that.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. He's definitely It was definitely a preseason game where it's kind of sometimes, especially in those stints that are shorter, and you don't get a second chance to go back out there and find a rhythm. I feel like it was just one of those games where he just really couldn't find any flow. And I think defensively he was trying to do a lot, which newsflash, that's going to be your role in this defense. And that's part of the reason I was initially low on his fit specifically on that end. But I think offensively he could do a lot more to where more than he did in this game specifically, to where you can kind of live with those defensive issues. And yeah, getting 3 fouls as quick as he did, just, seemed like he was a step slow everywhere and stuff like that. But yeah, I think just the physical, he had a couple like physical blockouts and just being a presence that I thought were positives. But for the most part, anytime it's in space, especially against a young athletic team like this, like he's going to struggle. And I think that's going to be a common theme that we're just going to have to prepare for. But it might not matter. Like that's how good this offense could be. And that's kind of, I think Vogel's just going to try to keep working with him and just try to get him to contest without fouling and just put him in the right spots. And that starts with the front line. It's not all just on Yusuf. Like, I mean, if you're not keeping your guard in front of you, then that's a problem too, and makes his life a lot more difficult. And I think there's a few blow-bys where, it just put him in a tough spot. So I think if you could eliminate those and make his life easier, then that'll translate to a little more success on that end, hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just get my other one out of the way, but it definitely was not something where like everything else was just picture perfect defensively and Nurkic was somehow like, the weak link that just exposed and broke down like that. They were letting open shooters. They were, some cutters. Asar Thompson had a nice cut at one point. But the bigger thing that I was going to point out that I think similar to the fouling feels at least early in the season fixable and like a little bit more constructive criticism is the transition defense. I thought was horrible. Just way too many shots where, and again, Asar Thompson he's like freaking Kevin Love already out there getting an outlet pass up the court every single time that he gets his hands on the ball. And like, that's a lot to deal with. He had 6 assists and, I don't think you're necessarily expecting that. He's not on the scouting report in that way yet, but they didn't really adjust, and just too many times where it's like this guy a trail 3, that guy a corner 3 on a hit ahead. This guy's getting to the basket when the defense isn't set, quick, semi-transition pick and roll, and suddenly somebody's already at the basket. Like just little things that, again, it's preseason game number 1. It is what it is. We know that's going to be the growing pains of a completely new team trying to be put together on the fly, but it's a hallmark of Frank Vogel's teams is that they defend in transition. So I would expect it to get better.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like anything effort related in the preseason, I usually kind of ignore unless it's like becomes a huge red flag for every single game and there's just no effort. But they were
gassed at the beginning of that second quarter too. So to your point, yeah, for sure. What's your first negative? You said you didn't have many, but what's one?
Well, yeah, Nurkic was, I kind of like piggybacked off yours. That was my first one. I think that's kind of the obvious one where they struggled a little bit. The second one was that lineup. I don't think we're going to see a lot of this in the regular season. I think it was more of just due to the nature of it being preseason and just trying to get a feel for some guys. But the lineup with Gordon and like the bench crew, essentially with Kobe, I thought that lineup was a little bit interesting, and it puts a lot of pressure on Gordon to create offensively and kind of do everything. And I'd hope in the regular season that at least one of the big 3 are on the court at all times. Like it's definitely something they can do. So I'm not too overly concerned about that.
Wasn't it like Gordon, Allen, Kogi, Watanabe, and then Eubanks, and then I think Nurk came in right after that?
I don't even think Allen was out there at this time. There was one. It was like Gordon, Kogi, Bates Diop, Eubanks, and there's one more. So that lineup really struggled, and I think that's when the Pistons made a pretty big run. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see. I think it's just more of just, we're gonna say this a million times. It's just like this is just preseason, but I think it's just because of the environment, and it's not really something we're going to see a ton of. And the last one was just the turnovers, which is another thing it's just going to come with the territory of an entire new roster. There was some carelessness, and they had 19 turnovers, and which is more than the Pistons. And you'd think a younger team like them would have turned the ball over more than a veteran team like the Suns, but there's going to be some growing pains for sure.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. The last one that I would throw out, which is kind of a addition to your lineup thing, is Keita Bates-Diop to me did not play great in this game. Again, I'm really only evaluating the part when he was playing in the first half, but I actually don't think he shared the court with the Stars at all. So even then, it's a little bit tough. He played with Nurk, but he had one bucket off of a Nurk, or maybe got to the free throw line. No, I guess he didn't get to the free throw line. He had a cut that Nurkic found him on at one point that felt pretty good, like playing within the offense. But the bigger point that I'm saying that for is I felt like some of my worries about his offensive style around better players, I'm still, it's going to be a work in progress, I think. There was a time he had an open three and passed it up and tried to get to the basket and kind of tossed up like a, short mid-range shot that I don't think went in. And, it's just, I think his instinct is to score, not just spot up. And he's never been a high volume 3-point shooter, even when he has made them. It's fine. I think it's just going to be one of those things for a young player adapting to a different type of a role. But, for those of us who are excited about him being potentially the fifth starter and all these other things, like maybe today was a little bit of a reminder. It might take a minute. All right, let's look on that kind of note, what else we're going to want to see on Tuesday and the home preseason opener and just throughout the rest of the preseason based on what we saw today. We'll get to that next. First, today's show brought to you by Jace Medical. And Jace Medical makes the Jace case, which is basically like a first aid kit for antibiotics. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jace case is a simple form that you fill out online. In some cases, a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians, and then that's it. You get everything mailed to your house, so you're not caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones in case of the unexpected, and Jace handles everything to make that happen, from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery, as well as ongoing consultation and care if you need it. Jace Medical is simple. You go online, fill out a form, get a prescription, life-saving medications, whatever you need right to your door, as well as the core antibiotics that make up the bare basic Jace case. Gives you peace of mind so you're not just hoping you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have that medication in hand. So get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASEmedical.com. Get your case, get $20 off, jacemedical.com, promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. All right, let's close it out, Brandon. Let's look forward. The Suns play the Nuggets on Tuesday at home, and we'll see. I was looking forward to Bucks Bulls today, and the Bucks decided to not play anybody, so we'll see what the Suns do. We'll see what the Nuggets do. But either way, another opportunity to see these guys. And I think, to me, the place that I start as far as what I would like to see them experiment more with is throw a bunch more different guys into that fifth spot with the star players. And even if you don't play the stars a ton more, maybe it's 20 minutes in this game, just mix and match lineups in general a lot more. Because to your point, it was just weird how it wasn't even the first half. They played like the first quarter and a half, and then they were all done. And it just felt like kind of a missed opportunity to just tinker a little bit more. It seemed like they wanted to see all of them out there together as much as possible versus staggering. So I guess I just want to see more of that staggering so that the other players on this roster, the bottom line is they need to show that they can play with the best players, not with each other. It doesn't really matter how Keita Bates-Diop plays with Chimezie Metu. I don't care. I want to see them with the best players on the team. So hopefully more of that, even if it means staggering and not letting them play as much together, because I trust that. I think that'll work itself out, as we talked about with the offense at the top of the show.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that's the main thing that stands out to me too, is just doing more. Obviously, preseason game one, you're going to have your set rotations, and I'm sure Vogel kind of was going to stick to his plan, whatever it was, just stick to that. But I think in this next game, they can get a little more creative and hopefully get some of those guys battling for that fifth spot, more of an opportunity to play with those guys. And I think also on the other end, just trying to, with that second unit, just trying to throw out more lineups with one of Beal or Booker, with Gordon and Allen, like just kind of mixing and matching that backcourt a little bit more. And maybe even like a 3-guard lineup that I think just seeing how they play off each other, that there's some interesting stuff they could throw out there that I'm sure we'll see. Like it's definitely preseason is by the time we're on that game 5, everyone's going to be kind of mentally checked out. But yeah, there's definitely still some fun stuff they can throw out there and hopefully keep the stars engaged. And I'm sure there's gonna be one game they'll sit out and load management. I don't know if it's a thing in preseason, but
my guess would be Thursday. I think Thursday might be the game where they rest guys because I don't think that they would prefer to do it at home. And especially the Thursday, the 19th, the last one before the last preseason game. That's the one that they're doing in Palm Springs. They're technically calling it a home game for the Suns, which is like on ESPN, which is hilarious. It's obviously not. But either way, the league probably wouldn't love if they're doing this special event at a neutral site to try to get some Orange County fans involved with not having to go all the way to LA to see a game. And then, the Suns are like, yeah, you thought you could see Kevin Durant. Sorry. So my guess would be Thursday. But to your point about some of the lineups and different things, are you ready for the overreaction if Nikola Jokic has a big game on Tuesday in the post against the Suns? Because that's going to come. There will be a, they shouldn't have traded Ayton and whatever. Even if it's just 15 Suns fans on Twitter, that will be part of the discussion, I promise.
Oh yeah, the narrative drive will never end on Twitter. I think I tweeted this before preseason. It's just it's important to remember that pushing your narratives only matters in the preseason if they're right. And I feel like that's when people will push it. Like whenever it's something they had a strong take about and it doesn't happen, you don't hear about it. And then the next game it happens and that's all you hear about. So I think it goes both ways. I think if Nurkic does a good job on Jokic, then we're going to get the other side of the crowd or other side of the coin on that. So I try not to get too high or low on preseason. It's more just kind of what we talked about, just rotations and seeing how guys are feeling chemistry wise with each other, and everything else doesn't really matter. It's just a rehearsal for conditioning and all that stuff. So I'm just really not too concerned with all those narratives, but it will be a thing for sure. If Jokic makes 3 straight jumpers to start the game, it'll be chaos.
Especially because for some reason this game is on TNT. What are we doing putting a preseason game on TNT? I get they don't want to play Transformers 2 for the 9,000th time, and they'd rather put an NBA game on because it's going to get more viewers. And sure, I'll be one of those viewers. So I guess how can I criticize it? But it's just it's creating an environment for more nonsense for sure. But I mean, I don't want to overreact either. And I think that's to the point I was trying to make about Nurkic in the first place, is just I don't want to just sit here and repeat myself. It's he's 30, it's kind of a different thing than the past few years where we were constantly talking about Cam Johnson or Mikal Bridges or DeAndre Ayton. What can they do? What does this little flash mean? What's their opportunity with this kind of setup and situation going to be and this and that? It's a lot of these guys, it just sort of is what it is. And, they'll have ups and downs, but it's really about the team more so than individual players like it has been maybe the past few years where there was so much upside to always be talking about. It's I know what Grayson Allen is. I know what Eric Gordon is. I know what Yusuf Nurkic is. How do they play off the best players? And can that, kind of become better than the sum of its parts? So I think preseason can tell us a little bit about that, but I think your point is valid that it's not the same as even the Pistons, right? Where oh my God, Asar Thompson looks like a stud. We don't really have to worry about that with the Suns this year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think a lot of the rules are kind of set. It's just at this point, who's going to step up and get minutes to close games out, and they have plenty of options. So it's a good problem to have in that sense. But yeah, I think a lot of roles are sort of sorted out at this point in terms of what the expectations are. I definitely think there's going to be an opportunity for someone to have a mini breakout in the sense that they kind of surprise us a little bit, but it's not going to be anything any like major leap. I just don't think they really have a ton of guys that have that potential. But if someone does, like, sign me up for it, because that just makes them even more dangerous. So I think it's a ecosystem where dudes can, if they step up, they're going to get an opportunity. Because there's definitely, I don't think the rotation is set by any means. Like, I think there's favorites, but there's no guarantees. I think Vogel's going to really try to figure out what he's got this preseason. So that's the competition, I think, is what's going to keep it more competitive than you might expect for a top tier team, just because of all these guys, they know what they're fighting for. So I think that makes it kind of a plot within a plot of this preseason for the Suns.
For sure. And, even though it was just the first half, like, I'm sure there's guys who are like, hold on, why didn't I get to play in that first half when it was like real basketball, like Nasir Little's probably sitting there like, hold on, I'd like to get in the mix there, All right. Last question for you. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, ecstatic is Monty Williams to be getting Jalen Duren now after 4 years with DeAndre Ayton?
Probably about a 8.9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think he's even more excited that he gets to start two bigs. I saw
True.
Pistons Twitter was freaking out about Jay and Ivy not starting, and the two bigs, like, there's already some beef there just from a couple of tweets I saw with the quotes just going
literally beef with beef stew. That was a good. I don't know if you meant the pun, but you got there.
Totally intentional. No, definitely not. But yeah, Monty's already rubbing some Pistons fans the wrong way. That's from a very small sample size of 2 tweets I saw that were quoted to oblivion. But
I did Locked On Pistons to talk Monty like 3 weeks ago. And I tried to be positive because I do think this is the honeymoon phase for this team. Like, they're going to exceed expectations. They're going to lay a higher floor and all that stuff. And I tried not to be too negative about what's going to come after that, because I don't want to, poo-poo it. Their owners paying this guy like the GDP of a country to come be the head coach in Detroit. So, like, I don't want to make anybody too sad. But yeah, they're already getting accustomed to the things that we know. But Jalen Duren, I think, that guy's going to be a stud. I'm ready for the breakout. He was sick in summer league, and yes, like the free throw shooting and whatever, you can pick nits. He had a very paltry box score, but to just be able to like fake a dribble handoff and take a 7-footer like Nurkic off the dribble and get fouled at the basket, it's just like, the dude's 20 and he already looks like he's going to be a two-way force. But this is not a Pistons podcast, so we'll wrap it up there. Back tomorrow. Probably won't do like a deep dive preview of Suns Nuggets, considering we just talked about it here, but probably travel day for the team. We'll see if there's any media or anything else. Might actually dive into this second half and give you my thoughts on the granulars of some of the other players. Much more to come is the point. So hit follow, hit subscribe. We'll be there with you every single day from now through the end of time. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.